Hello and welcome to Calvin's Garage. I was doing a video recently and I got sidetracked talking about exhaust systems and how they work, and so I decided to make it its own video. There's a lot out there on exhaust systems, how they work, how to make them better, what the best exhaust system is, a lot of stuff out there. So today I decided to talk about the principles of how an exhaust system works, so that hopefully you can make your own informed decision and choose which exhaust system is the best for your project. The first piece of advice that everyone will tell you is that when it comes to exhaust, bigger is better. Got a 2-inch exhaust? No, you need a 4-inch. Now, there is some truth to that. Imagine breathing through a straw. Very hard. Now your engine breathes in through the intake and it breathes out through the exhaust. The exhaust stroke of your engine is actually responsible for pushing the exhaust out through the exhaust valve and through your car's exhaust system. Now, if it takes more force to push that exhaust gas out, that is less power that your engine can deliver to the wheels, because it's using up all this energy, all this power, all this force to eject all the waste gases out of the cylinder. By that logic, the least restrictive exhaust system should be the best, right? Open headers for the win? Well, not exactly. You see, a well set up exhaust system can actually deliver more power than just open headers alone. I had to write a script for this so that I would make sure to get all the points right. So how can that be? How can you have an exhaust system that is better than open headers, which are theoretically the least restrictive exhaust system you could have? The first principle that goes into that is laminar versus turbulent airflow. So I'm sure you've heard laminar flow before. Every kind of muffler, every exhaust tubing, header setup, everything that's advertises their laminar flow. But what does that actually mean? Well, I can't speak to whether companies accurately use this in their products and if they're telling the truth about how laminar their flow is, but I can tell you what laminar flow means in general. In general, laminar flow means that all of the air particles going through the tube are traveling the same velocity in the same direction. That's what laminar flow means. Now, the opposite of that would be turbulent airflow. Turbulent airflow means that air is going in different directions, traveling at different speeds. Most often, the causes of turbulent airflow are sudden changes in the diameter of the pipe, bends in the pipe, and when other pipes intersect. So these things all cause turbulent airflow, because even if you have laminar flow going into this area, some of the air will bounce off this tight turn here and intersect with the air coming in here, slowing it down. You'll create these swirls of air, and the air that hits the sides here will then have to go in, and all the air will be squeezed into the smaller pipe here. So you have a lot of intersecting air going different places at the same time, and that is what creates turbulence. And turbulent air creates resistance. That is resistance that the cylinder feels, the cylinder experiences when it is trying to push all the exhaust gas out of the combustion chamber. So turbulent air can actually rob horsepower, because more power is being dedicated to pushing the air out through the exhaust. whereas laminar flow decreases resistance. Another principle whereby exhaust can increase power is called scavenging. Exhaust scavenging relies on Bernoulli's principle. Bernoulli's principle is something that comes up in aviation a lot, and it's one of the major principles behind the design of the airfoil that all aircraft wings are shaped after. So this kind of teardrop shape. So Bernoulli discovered that when air encounters an object, it tends to flow along the surface of the object, and when the air is broken, the air molecules tend to want to meet up here, or at least that's how it's generally explained. I know the air particles aren't sentient. They can't be like, oh, my buddy is going to meet me right here at this point in time. But that's just how it works. So these two air molecules, they take different paths that are different lengths. And so the way they meet up here is the one taking the longer path has to move faster in order to have the same amount of travel time. Bernoulli discovered that faster air creates lower pressure. And so using that principle in an exhaust system, you can actually create low pressure zones in your exhaust system. Now that pressure is relative to the atmospheric pressure on the outside here. Of course, up by the engine, that is going to be very high pressure because you're creating a lot of exhaust gas and you're also pushing that exhaust gas out of the chambers and into the exhaust. So without exhaust scavenging or Bernoulli's principle, you would have a high pressure zone here relative to the atmosphere, and then you would have the atmospheric pressure out here. And so that pressure gradient, which is driven mostly by the engine, is what is forcing air through the system. But when you have Bernoulli's principle and you create this low pressure zone here, because the pressure is so high here, it actually is going to increase the magnitude of this pressure gradient from here to here, and it can actually work to almost suck out the exhaust gas from the engine. So that means your engine is doing less work to get the exhaust gases out, which means more of that power that's being generated can go straight to your wheels. And so that is the main way that an exhaust system can increase horsepower. Now, how do turbos work? I thought you don't want crazy bends and things in the way of the exhaust system, creating turbulent airflow and taking up some of the power. And the answer is yes, turbo systems do cause some problems with the exhaust. So first, turbos often require you to make tight turns in your exhaust system so that you can get the exhaust to power the turbo. That can increase turbulence and reduce scavenging. But secondly, inside your turbo, that exhaust gas is being used to spin a turbine which compresses the air going into the cylinder, and that can also increase the resistance because you're using the force of the exhaust gas to spin that turbine to do work. So the turbo does rob your overall power. However, the compressed air and the extra fuel to go along with it that's going into the cylinder actually increases your power more than the exhaust is robbing. Of course, you do need to make a certain amount of boost to overcome the power lost by the turbo, and generally the bigger the turbo, the more boost you need to make to overcome those losses. I guarantee that if you were to put a giant turbo on your engine, but then set the wastegate so that it only makes 1 or 2 psi of boost, you would actually find that if you put your car on a dyno afterwards, you would actually lose horsepower because of the turbo using much more power than it's able to create. However, turbos can actually be more efficient because 13 oxygen molecules in the cylinder react with 1 molecule of octane. Now, of course, that doesn't take into account incomplete combustion and all the different things in fuel, because fuel is not 100% octane. But anyway, so you have 13 plus 1, that's 14 molecules going into the combustion chamber. And then when they leave, if they've completely combusted, they will actually make 17 molecules of, so 17 molecules overall, that's 8 molecules of CO2 and 9 molecules of water. So you have 13 molecules going in, 13 molecules going in, and then you have 17 molecules coming out. So because you have more molecules, you actually have more of a chance to spin that turbine on the exhaust side to compress more air. Of course, you do have to deal with the fact that the exhaust gas is hot, so it expands, but even still, the increased pressure from the combustion chamber will help out with that. And you could probably go crazy using the universal gas law at the different stages of combustion to try and figure out, you know, what's the pressure in each place at each stage of combustion. So we're not going to go into it much further. But so also, similar to the way gears work, you can actually change the size of the turbine on the two sides, the hot side, which deals with the exhaust gas, and the cold side, which deals with the air going into the engine. You can change the size of those turbines on each side, similar to how you can change the sizes of gears, and so that can make your use of the exhaust more efficient. So less exhaust creates more compression of the air. I won't go into turbos anymore in this video. Let me know if you would like a video on turbos in the future. But basically, turbos do rob a little bit of power, but you more than make up for it using the boost from the turbo. Now, I mentioned incomplete combustion, and that's what the catalytic converter is for. The catalytic converter takes these products of incomplete combustion, things like carbon monoxide, nitrous species, unburned fuels, possibly some free radicals, nasty stuff, and the catalytic converter converts these bad things into things that are less bad so that they can then go out into the environment. Legally, in most states for road-going vehicles, the most you can do is get an aftermarket high-flow cat. That, as the name suggests, decreases the resistance of the catalytic converter and increases the flow rate through it. And that can, again, reduce resistance, which means you need less force to overcome that resistance and push exhaust gas through the system. For off-road or track-only vehicles, you can do a cat delete if you choose, although even that may have some legal ramifications if you're in certain jurisdictions, California, and it's still questionable. So that's really about it for the performance side of exhaust. Most of the other exhaust modifications that you see are more cosmetic in nature. They're designed to enhance the sound of the vehicle rather than the performance. Equal length headers, which basically means you have your engine block here, and I'm using a boxer engine, So equal length headers, and I'm using a boxer engine here to demonstrate because I'm pretty sure this is a common thing on some Porsches. But basically, equal length headers mean that no matter which cylinder you are in, so these would be normal headers, basically the shortest path from the cylinder to the main exhaust pipe. However, for equal length headers, you will actually, for the short headers, you will actually add on some like twists and stuff so that the the length that the exhaust gas travels to get to the main tailpipe and the main exhaust pipe is the same no matter which cylinder the exhaust gas comes from. Now that could help to decrease resistance, but mainly equal length headers are more about the sound, at least as far as my experience. Same thing with a straight pipe. Straight pipe exhaust, or where the exhaust has no bends between the headers and the tailpipe, that does decrease resistance, but mainly when people do a straight pipe exhaust, they're more interested in sound, getting the loudest sound possible. You can also do certain bends in the exhaust to create these resonant frequencies to change the sound of the engine, and actually an H-pipe or an X-pipe exhaust, where the exhaust in the middle of the car either crosses over in an X pattern or crosses over in an X pattern or possibly an H pattern, can also change the sound that the exhaust makes. So if you like this video, I've been told there's a little like button down by the comment section, so you can go ahead and press that if you would like. And also let me know in the comments section any other video topics you would like me to cover, especially in this format. Thank you very much for watching.